it is a real privilege to welcome the New South Wales Building Commissioner, David Chandler.
Well, what a crowd. Michael, you said you were going to draw a crowd, and I'm sure it's you. It can't be me. But it's quite an amazing opportunity to meet you and to share with you some of the things that I think we all need to navigate in the very, very near future. So I've probably met a lot of you in moving around, and I'm sure I'm going to meet a lot more of you as we move around some more in the next year or so. Little did I know I was going to end up as the New South Wales Building Commissioner in July 2019. I was actually preparing my fishing rods for quite a different future. But notwithstanding that, I got bailed up by the then Secretary of the Department, Glenn King, and said, we want you to come and do this job. And I put my hand up and said yes on my 69th birthday. So here we are, we're a couple of years into it, and we've got a few more years to go to get it done. So what I'd like to do today is to just simply run you through a few things. I hope this video that's in here is going to work, but we'll see when we get to it. And if we don't, we won't linger. But look, what I think we've achieved in the last year is that there is now a genuine understanding that we had a problem. When I was appointed Building Commissioner, there were some people commentating that if it wasn't for Mascot Towers and it wasn't for Opal Towers, you wouldn't need a Building Commissioner. Well, the takeaway message that I'd like you to all have tonight is that while we can talk about days ahead and better days, we can't start that journey until such time as we've faced up to the realities of today. So first of all, I just want you to understand what I think my job is over the next 18 months. My job is to get your customers back. That's simply the main mission, is to get your customers back. Now, they've deserted our industry for a range of reasons. Certainly, some of the experiences that customers have had that have been well reported, that's certainly been a burden on this industry. Obviously, we've had COVID, and that's had a huge impact as well. Our numbers as the industry are down by about 30, nearly 40% in terms of apartments we're going to complete in the next year. So our goal is to try and get back to completions that are about the same as the pre-COVID levels by 2023, and that's going to be quite a big job because you've got to start those jobs to get them completed. So our mission that I'm working on is, what does it look like at the end? What does it look like by the end of next year? Well, the mission is simply to make New South Wales the preferred state for consumers to invest in new apartment buildings in Australia, to make New South Wales the best state. And I think we are a real chance of that because we have the legislation and the resources to support this that doesn't exist in any other state. Probably some may not like some of the things we've got to do, but I'm afraid that's what we've got to do to get it to where we want it to be. We want New South Wales to be the preferred market for financiers to invest and help finance new projects. You know, every financier I talk to, they're in one side of the transaction or the other. They're either financing a new development or they're financing purchases of those developments. Well, they have an interest in what we make because at the end of the day, they've got very large mortgage books that really could be improved if we had buildings of better quality. We also want to make sure that New South Wales becomes the best state for insurers to support. At the moment, the insurance industry support for this state is running at a significant loss. For about every dollar that they write in insurance income in this state, they have to spend about $1.23. So it's a loss-making experience, and that's why insurance prices are going up, and they will continue to go up until we turn it around. We want to make this state a place where branded developers, people who are proud of their brand, are the ones who dominate this industry, and they dominate this industry with quality product. I don't believe there's a place in this industry for people who don't believe they should have a brand, because at the end of the day, the brand talks about the aspiration and the customer promise that you want to make out there and that you want people to believe. If you are just simply some person who wants to live in the background using an address of an accountant or a lawyer for convenience, then I'm afraid I don't see much of a future in this industry for you. You need to get onto the journey of becoming a well-regarded, highly visible, branded organisation who is known for delivering what you promise. And if you don't want to be that, then I think the going's going to get tough. So we want to get back to 20,000 starts by 2023. I don't think we'll quite get to completions by then, but we certainly should get back to the starts. And very importantly, until we lift the brand of this industry, we will not attract the next generation of constructors. Between now and 2030, I estimate that we need 100,000 new people to come into our industry to be its leaders and be the makers and designers of buildings. We employ about 370,000 people in New South Wales at the moment in our industry, and I reckon about a third of those will retire. I mean, look around the room tonight, and the rooms actually get younger every time I go out. So there's enough of us, though, that probably won't be in business or operating by 2030. What we need to remind ourselves is that every person who will come into our industry by 2030 is already 10 years old. Now, those people who might say to Mum, I want to be in the construction industry, are likely to get howled down and saying, no, you don't want to be in the construction industry, mate. It's got a bad reputation. It's not safe. Well, we've got to sort that out, because if we've ever had a shortage of labour in the past, until we turn the brand of this industry around and start to make it attractive to young people, then we're going to flounder, and flounder seriously. So what I want to spend a bit of tonight about is talking to you about what this industry doesn't or shouldn't look like. You are constantly being confronted with newspaper articles, media of all types, where we're being reminded of what we have yet to do. Now, I'm not sure how this video might work, but is that going to move forward? Because if it's not, I'm not going to play with it. So, is that video going to work, or is it not? Don't be too stressed about it if it's not. The reason I want to show you this video is it's a message from my sponsor. Luke, is that not going to work? No, that's fine. So let's move on. So you will have seen that interview with Kevin Anderson on Channel 7. There's a live link to this document that will go out to you tonight. Please have a look at that, because it truly is a message from my sponsor. And he's very serious. I just want to take you back to the start of where we were, because there was really, if you remember my first days in the job, I was in the upper house and I had to run the gauntlet of Mr. Shoebridge, and he thought none of this was possible. I think he's starting to believe, as some of the others do, that it is now possible. But the big message was that our regulatory capability in New South Wales was focused on cleaning up at the back end, as opposed to getting a proactive position at the front end. And I can assure you that over the next 6 and 12 months, you're going to see a regulator in New South Wales that is going to play the game from the front of the bus, not the back of the bus. So you're going to see initiatives from us and from the regulator that they've never even dreamed of initiating in years gone past. So you'll see this diagram is just simply symbolic that we're taking all of this effort that we've spent in 4 to 6 years after jobs have been finished, and we're putting them into the front of a year or two before they're finished. I think that's going to be good for the industry. It's certainly going to be good for consumers. And you can see that the little graphic, the little telephone here, that basically, I'm in connection with over 500 jobs at any one time. I can see what jobs are being visited. I can see what the scores for those jobs are. The days of data, just like you saw with ARC just a short while ago, there's no place to hide. Certainly not behind an address of convenience in an accountant's office. So, in reshaping the direction of the regulator, the big pivot is, and you'll get these slides, so you won't need to take too many photos along the way, is that we've basically said, look, in the past, we've spent a lot of time criticising the tiler, criticising the waterproofer, criticising the certifier. Now, they all can lift their game. But what we haven't ever done is confronted the developers with a situation that says, look, you sell apartments to consumers, you hold the deposits, you hire the designer, you hire the contractor, you hire the certifier. All of that, not my problem, your problem. And so if you find that I'm a bit abrasive about that view, in explaining it to you, it's very simple. Because you are also the one that when you get an occupation certificate, the consumer is obliged to settle and become the owner. And for many apartments, and you'll see some numbers to support what we've got to say shortly, is that they get burdened. They end up with this apartment hanging around their neck for 6 to 10 years. And Michael, you'll know about this because you're already acting for some of these, as some of the other people in this room are. So that's not acceptable. So the point we decided to get involved right in the front of the bus is, we see a lousy OC coming, then it'll be taking a little bit longer to get there until it's right, because that's the job of the regulator, is to make sure that that critical transaction where the consumer goes from being a depositor to an owner, that there's someone out the front of the bus saying, if it's not right, it's not right. So some of you will have experienced that. Just want you to understand the power of data. When I first came into this job, I was surprised to see how antiquated the organisation's business was. Over 20 silos of data. Everybody looking after their little bit of data, but no one sharing any data. So we had plumbing inspectors and electrical inspectors, and everybody had their little pile of data and nobody shared it. Well, what we've done is we've kicked a hole in the door of all of those silos, and now we have joined up 142 million lines of data that is informing the decisions we make. So where we decide to land on a project, risky developer, lousy certifier, builder with a swag of safety improvement notices, these are all the things that point to risk. We now have a very powerful capability. We're also getting almost hourly updates as to what we're finding from the audits. So you can see that the top defect that we're discovering remains waterproofing. It is the largest contributor to what we have to see, followed by structure, followed by fire services, and just recently we've seen a spate of services skewed by identifying some very risky car hoists, car stackers that operate like this. I've never seen anything like it. Our inspections are running all the way from the Tweed. They'll go all the way down to Bateman's Bay, and they'll go all the way across New South Wales. So this is not a metropolitan strategy. This is a New South Wales strategy, starting looking at Class 2 buildings, which are the most troublesome to the government and to consumers. This is very early information, and I just thought it'd be useful to share with you. This is information that's only a week old, but we have been working with Strata Communities Australia to conduct a survey to actually ask the people who own buildings that are up to 6 years old, what are their experiences? So for the first time, this is the very first time this data is available to a regulator, is that when I first came in, the media was full of 80% of buildings have got defects. Well, yes, there's defects. There's consumer defects, but there's material defects. So we're focused on the material defects. They're the serious defects in a common property. They deal with the structure, the waterproofing, the fire systems, the building enclosure, and the key building services. Now, they're what we're focused on. The common property, the critical building elements. You can see that there's quite a lot of red on the prior slide, and on this one here, what we've now got is data from the occupants of the building. So 34% of all buildings have serious defects in them. That's not a good number. 34% of all buildings up to 6 years old have serious defects in them. And we've got a very statistically reliable survey, which is 357 strata communities have filled out this survey. So this is got now really solid evidence. This is reliable statistically to 90% for those who are interested in that sort of information. And guess what comes through? Of the 34% of buildings with serious defects, waterproofing tops it. 78% of those buildings have waterproofing issues. 56% of them have fire safety. 37% have building enclosure, and 37% have structure. The rest are sort of falling a bit behind, not that important. So look, that's our focus, those things, and now we're driven by data, and now we know what we're looking for. Some of you will have seen this particular set of images. On the left-hand side of the image, I think it's the left-hand side, or is it? Yes. Is the graph that's pointing up. That's the plan to do 200 OC audits over the next 2 years. We're already up to 47 audits as at the moment. I personally look at every single one of those audit reports, and I've personally been on over 65 sites with almost a full detailed presence on each of those sites. The government has funded new resources. They're the 30 people that you're seeing and you're meeting out on your jobs doing OC audits. So this was additional funding to support this program. And that's the dark blue line. That's the first round of resources. You should be aware that the red and the purple line is yet to come. The red line will start to be the audits that we'll perform on the declared designs. So on the 1st of July, when the declared designs start, we'll start auditing on a risk-based declared design. So another wave of auditors coming through, and then as the declared as-built start to come over the fence, another wave of auditors coming to have a look at the declared as-builts to make sure that the declared as-builts match the declared designs. There'll be consequences if we find those things aren't right. Now look, that's one strategy that we've got, and it's starting to get the message out loud and clear. I think some people that have run into tangly audits haven't enjoyed the experience. I'm sorry about that. Please tell your friends it's not a pleasant experience, and it would be good if we didn't have to do some of the things that we're going to have to do. But there's more we can do because we've now got data. We've now got this rich pool of data. So I sent the investigation team off the other week to say, of all of the projects that we've got coming up for OC audits, all of the projects where I've been advised that they're going to get an OC within 6 months, how many do the 6 most annoying certifiers attend to? So the answer is that 29% of those projects have the 6 most annoying certifiers in the state. So I know who they are. I know where they are. And we're going there. We're starting on Monday week with a completely new audit program for them. And you can see what we'll be asking them. They'll be getting orders to give that information out. Show us the CC that you used. Show the documents that you used for your CC. Give us a list of all the people you intend to take a certificate off to make up your OC. Show us what your strategy is to validate that they're not just someone sitting across the desk saying, what do you want now? Fire one. Okay, right, there's one. What do you want now? That's over. Because certifiers in New South Wales know that they're seriously exposed to this stuff because we can see them. So 2 weeks from now, we've typically got about 500 projects in the bow wave of notified projects that are heading for an OC. 29% of those projects, the certifiers are now going to get an order to give us this information. They're going to bellyache about the fact that this is a lot of new work for them. But guess what? We're only landing on the 6 most annoying auditors because we're leaving all the other good ones alone. So the first question, I presented this last week to the Urban Task Force, and in the room said, well, Commissioner, why don't you tell us who those 6 auditors, who those 6 certifiers are? And I said, no, let's do it this way. Let's wander over here afterwards, and I'll hand out some beer coasters, and you write down the 6 you think, and we collect them all up, and then I'll average them up, and I'll call out what was the average of what you all think, and guess what? We all think the same, so we know. And you don't need to ask me because you know. True? Does anyone in this room think they couldn't populate the top 6 most annoying certifiers in New South Wales? I didn't think so. So, I get accused that I'm a media tart. Look at me. I can't even imagine what TV show that I'd be put on, but anyway. But there is a lot of interest in what we're doing, and I can tell you that the media will stay with it right through to the end because it sells newspapers. So I want this to stop. And this is why I'm here tonight, is to say to you, I want this to stop. So I'm going to show you some images now that I have personally taken. So this is not stuff that I've gone and got off Google or whatever. This is stuff that I have personally taken. I'm not going to particularly spend much time on this other than to say that those of you who have been on an OC audit where I'm present, you know we go to the basement first and we wander around the basement and we have a good look at how the basement's been made, because I was brought up, I started on the tools as a carpenter in 1969, so I've been through the school of construction for a very long time, and generally I find that the DNA of a building is able to be observed at the very, very lowest level of the building. And then people say to me, well, Krishna, are you ready now to come and have a look at the display suite? I said, no, if the basement's lousy, what do I want to see lipstick on a pig for? So we then go up the fire stairs, and people are quite surprised that I'm quite happy to walk up 20 floors, and I normally get to the top before everybody else, because old habits die hard. They're all puffing and chanting down the bloody stairs. All this, come on, hurry up. I'm normally at the top. And I get to the roof because I expect the roof to be a carbon copy of the basement. And guess what? 80% of the time that's right. So if you build a lousy basement, you're very likely to build a lousy roof. And the fire stairs always tell me what I'm about to see. And then I'll wander down a couple of floors and have a look at some apartments at various stages of completion before I form my view and walk out. So let me just share with you some of these images, because do you know that when I talk to people about these images, they say, David, how could anybody build that stuff? Let me tell you, 60% of you do, right? I'd like it to be 30%, but of all the buildings I've been into, I would say that I'm seeing this 60% of the time. You can form your own judgments. This pack's available to everybody who's here tonight, so I want you to see what I'm seeing. And this is generally buildings that are either within a few weeks of an OC, or they're within 2 years of having achieved an OC. For those developers who think that it's a good idea to race ahead with the architectural designs and the structural design and tell the builder to actually let a D&C contract for the plumbing and the hydraulic services, it's always a good idea to work out when to do that, because it's not a good idea to do that when the structure's up on the 5th or 6th floor and you've got to saw cut all of the services below the slab in through the slab. And it's not really smart to do it when you get to the roof. So if you can see that slide in the middle at the top, that's a planter box that left the plumbing out for the planter box. And they chased that through the roof. So roughly 180 millimetre slab with a 75 millimetre trench through it so they can put a drain to the planter box. Now, some of you will say, no way, Jose. And I'm telling you, yes, it's every day. I have threatened to nominate the builders and the developers of these projects that I see these things on. I'm getting very, very close to that. Things I look for, you can see here. The cover on reinforcement. I mean, we all know what's in the Australian standard. Pretty plain stuff. This next slide. The sump was built, but they'd left the drainage out. Don't laugh, because if it turns out to be your project next time, I can tell you that it's not a funny experience, because I put on quite a show. So look, you're going to get these photos, and I don't want to make sure that the evening's ruined by giving you all some nightmares to worry about. But if you are continuing to produce that stuff from here on in, I'm getting very close to sharing my images with the media as I walk out the gate. So I can use AirDrop and they'll say, Commissioner, what did you see? I'll go boom, 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 push, AirDrop. Because we're going to have to do more than we're doing at the moment, because I haven't seen a lot of change since I've been building commissioner. And I'm begging you, I am pleading with you, stop turning up with what I'm seeing. I'm not going to cop it. You need to understand that very clearly. I am not going to cop it. My real goal, though, is at the end of next year is to have identified at least 100 developers that I can say are trustworthy. So we're having meetings at the moment. We've got people coming together. There's 25 in a room now, and we'll grow it to 50, and we'll grow it to 75, and by the end of the year, we'll have 100 people in a room that I think are committed to a journey to become trustworthy. I'm not going to explain what that means at the moment to you, because those people are working on that, and we'll come out with more on it as we go forward. But it will be just absolutely pointless if at the end of next year the result of my work is purely a pile of crumpled up, lousy developers in the bottom corner. Because they'd rise from the ashes, and 2 years later they'd be back in business. So I want them to stay crumpled up in that corner. What I want is the good developers, and there's really many, many of you. I want you moving on that curve, up the trustworthy curve, because I need to tell consumers that increasingly there's more and more people you can trust. And I'm very pleased to see that some of the people that I thought might have caused me the most grief are actually starting to turn their businesses around. When there are some people who said to me, Commissioner, when you walked in the door, there's no way in the world you're going to turn that business around. Well, very shortly, I'm going to nominate a few businesses that I think have really just turned their entire business model around, and I'll bet money they're going to be the high-quality developers of tomorrow. They'll be the Meritons of tomorrow. It's interesting that most people tell me that the developer they most aspire to be like is Meriton. Well, why wouldn't you be? David Cremona, in my view, is the best constructor in Australia. $1.5 billion worth of work year on year. And when you walk in, it's what he says it is. It's generally very, very good. I use him as an example. He's not exclusive, but I just use someone that maybe 15 years ago you might have said, "Oh, Harry, not sure." I can tell you now, Harry, be sure. Bloody good projects. And I'd like to say that about more and more of you go forward. I've met some very young developers here that are sort of saying we'd like to set our sails in that direction. I'm here to help you. I'm here to encourage you. But please walk the talk. If you just talk the talk, then I'll quickly discover you and cut you off. Quick check-in where we're up to with legislation. The Design and Building Practitioners Act starts on the 1st of July. There'll be no shift of that date. It will start. There'll be registrations required of designers. There's transitional arrangements in place. The regulations will go up for publication in the next week, but there should be no surprises there. You'll be able to have a deemed registration for those people who jump on board early and register on the 1st of July. You can't start registering before, so please don't send me LinkedIn messages to say, when can I register? In fact, don't send me any messages on LinkedIn, because that's not the front desk of the Office of Fair Trading. Please stop sending me, can you fix this, Commissioner? Can you fix that? Because when I get home, I'm going to turn my phone off. And so then the next thing you need to understand is what happens after the 1st of July about the lodgement of drawings, the way that they'll go up onto the e-planning platform, declared designs, declared constructions. Please pay attention. We've put links in, so there's links on all of these pages, so there won't be any difficulty getting the information as it comes. My last slide will tell you that. So a new initiative that's starting tonight is that we're going to have quality construction cards. I originally had this idea about, I wanted a yellow card. I want to be able to run on a job. I wanted to be able to blow the whistle and give someone a yellow card and say, off. So what they said, Commissioners, why don't you wait and do that in a year from now and try something else? So what we're going to try is these quality construction cards. So tonight I bought a sample bag of these cards. And they're not free, because I don't think anything that's of value should be free. Now, how these cards work is simply is that I'm going to ask you, would you mind doing one of these courses? Now, over the next year, my office is actually building about 20 modules of things that we think are important for people to know. One of the important things to know is about Australian standards. So the card that will go out tonight will be to direct you to a learning module to get you to understand and navigate Australian standards. It's become a bit of a joke, me going around and saying to people in the sheds, give me 5. They're saying, what's 5? I'm saying, give me 5 standards that you might be using on this job. And do you know what? I've not had one person come back and say, this standard, that standard, that standard. They've just all dumbfounded look at me and said, Jesus, I don't know, we did it a while ago, but I can't remember the bloody standard, mate. So when I just say give me 5, there's 32 that you really should be able to rattle off. Can't give me 5. So I was on a job the other day and I said to a young man on the job, will you give me 5? And he said, what do you mean? I said, 5 standards. He said, I can't, but I'll drop down now and give you 5, and gave me 5 press-ups. I don't think I've got the power to go around and tell everybody to do 5 press-ups if they can't give me 5 standards. So tonight, I brought 50 of those cards, and I fully expect to walk out the door with someone taking one of those cards off me. So it'll be really interesting as those who are really interested in doing this, because this is an interesting experiment. Matt Press is over there in the corner. We've got 50 cards tonight. What we want you to do is to put your name and your details on the card and tear that half of the card off. It's perforated, so it'll be all right. You take that bit, we'll hold that bit. Cost you $125 to do the module, but we'll be watching to see if you do. So don't just take it away because you think you can blow smoke up my tail tonight. I'm expecting 50 people tonight, take one of those cards and go away and do that, because what we've got to do is to get all of you to do better than give me 5 than a blank look. So look, we're here to help. We're not here to be the awful cob on the beat. I know I look a bit grumpy at times, but I don't know. I think I haven't got a face for TV, that's the problem. So look, we've got a great team. They're enthusiastic. They're here to help. I've only got a small team. There's only 15 people in the Building Commissioner's office. We're getting all this done with 15 people. I know that we've got BRD and they've got a couple of hundred, and we're working with them to transform their business. All of these little symbols on the bottom are links to things that are useful for you to understand. You can click on RABAC. You can click on any of these things, digital learning platform. Subscribe to the newsletter. Please stay in touch with us. We want to get your customers back as much as you do. So please treat what I've got to say seriously, and frankly, if I find more of the stuff that I've shown you tonight, really, we're going to ramp it up. We're not interested. The day for that is over. Thank you.